sales is really about, it's two things. It's volume, so that's the level of effort and the time that you put in, and it's efficiency, is how efficient are you at converting. It's two things. That's all that sales is. And people work really hard. You can't train volume. Either someone has the hustle and they go out and do it, or they don't. You can't train volume. You can train efficiency. And if someone is inefficient, they can either get there or they can't, right?
I often hear this as saying that the two hardest people to sell to are British people and German. I'm not sure in which order. Did you find this true?
Okay, so Brits are very much, okay, this is my opinion about specifically selling.
Yeah.
We found that they are, it takes a long time for them to make a decision. But once they make a decision, you're in, and you're in there for a while, and you really have to mess up to be back out.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. In construction, precision matters. Every budget line, every schedule, every document. But too often, project data is scattered across tools and departments, creating risky silos. That's where Autodesk comes in. Autodesk is the all-in-one construction management platform designed to connect your entire project operation, from opportunity through to tender, all the way to handover. With real-time dashboards, cost control, scheduling, procurement, and document management in one place, Autodesk gives you complete visibility and control. Trusted by contractors, subcontractors, and asset owners worldwide, Autodesk has powered landmark projects from shopping centers to Europe's tallest buildings. If you're ready to reduce risk, protect your margins, and deliver projects with confidence, discover Autodesk today. Visit arcdesk.com, that's ARCH desk.com, and see how leading firms are building smarter with Autodesk.
Okay, Mike, thanks for joining. Maybe we could kick this off, actually. I just had a thought between hitting record and asking this, but we were just having a discussion before, and I said that, and I got confused with your job title. You are now CRO at Building Connect. Getting confused again. OnSight IQ.
That's true.
You were the VP of Sales at Building Connected before, and then you started describing the difference between the two. Maybe you should do that again. Just
okay, sure.
People, yeah.
Difference between a CRO and a VP of Sales?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So I think the easiest way to describe it is a VP of Sales is about sales execution, right? You're trying to hit a goal or a plan that was set. So a CRO is a lot more involved in setting the strategy of the go-to-market motion. So the way I like to think about it is if things don't go well and you're a VP of Sales, then you either failed or you were given a bad plan. But if you're a CRO and things don't go well, then you either failed or you probably shouldn't have taken the job to begin with, because it was, you didn't do your due diligence. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Fine. So Mike, tell us about, so Building Connected. People who listen to us will be very familiar with the company and the success that it endured with its 275 mil exit to Autodesk. So you, as a VP of Sales there, what were you doing on that front to get to a point where Autodesk were like, yeah, you're at the right revenue and so on and so forth, figures that we now want to buy you?
Yeah. So that was a 4-year journey. So how long do you have?
Not 4 years.
About 4 years to go through it. So yeah, it was. I think early on, it's really just about execution and finding a repeatable strategy, right? And when I joined the business, we had 0 revenue, right? So it was about understanding how are we going to gain traction, and then as the product team works to build functionality and features that we can actually sell, then we can kind of put together a strategy to generate revenue. And the early days were just how do we build a better mousetrap to help people bid better, faster, more efficiently to a wider net of subcontractors to allow them to, execute on their pre-construction strategy faster. And there were a couple solutions on the market, but most of the industry was just using spreadsheets. So the product team did a great job putting together, a better mousetrap for bid management. And the sales team's job was just to get it out there, and to move as quickly as we could to get people to use it. And once we started realizing that that was working, it was exciting. You had people using it, and you had the adrenaline rush of, okay, we're gaining traction, we're gaining users, and the long-term strategy was, how do we get as many subcontractors into the network as possible, so we're the place where everyone goes. And we knew that that would work if we could execute well. But then, then the hard part started when we had to start selling and generating revenue, and then you kind of go back to the table and reset the strategy from there. And that was also very, iterative.
Do people, when you go from, because for just so people are familiar with this, in the earlier days of building connected, it was about getting people onto the as many people onto the platform as possible, but without monetization. So when you flick the switch to monetization, were you involved? Were you at building connected at that time, and how was that experience? What was people's perhaps resistance or even or opposite to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we launched the paid product, which was a few months after I joined the company, we it was really about understanding what were they going to buy, what was going to make them upgrade from what they were doing for free. And yeah, you described it well. We would approach a general contractor and say, hey, talk to me about your bidding process, and then we would offer them a solution that was able to do it more efficiently. And in exchange for that, they would provide us with a subcontractor list that would help. We would help them to organize and structure it better, and then the subcontractors could actually create profiles in the platform and created this network effect within the platform. So then, when we started selling the solution, we would constantly test new products, new features that the product team was putting out to see which things were interesting, and it would ask customers, are you willing to pay for this if we build it? And once we had enough features where they said yes, then we were actually able to start landing some smaller contracts, testing, retesting. And then it was probably not until about a year later when I would start going to executive offices with general contractors and start looking at it across their whole business rather than one office or one business unit. So it was kind of land and expand, and then started doing an enterprise sale about a year in.
I really want to ask you this: why did Dustin think that you have the right resume for the role?
That's a great question. I have no idea. You'll have to ask him.
Time to blow your trumpet.
Yeah. So for just briefly, I mean, the first 10 years of my career, I was in consulting, right? I was in a management consulting role, primarily focused on construction. A lot of what we did was disputes, challenge projects. We would go forensically investigate what happened on a project and figure out what went wrong, and then either operationally help set the project back on track by putting in processes, updating the schedule, figuring out how to go forward more efficiently. But a lot of the times these things turned into massive disputes. So extremely over budget, extremely delayed, and who was responsible for that? And we would have to put those pieces together, present that to a trier of fact, whether it's a mediation or litigation. Most of the times these things settle out of court. So you go into mediation and it gets hot in there. People get pissed off. It gets ugly. I've seen chairs thrown.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you ever get hit by a chair once before?
Personally, no, but I've seen someone get hit by a chair, and that puts everyone. Then the mediator says, everyone go in their separate way. It's kind of like a boxing ring. Go in your separate rooms. And passionate industry. I mean, it really is. And I learned a lot about what could go wrong, right? So I think when venture capital started taking more of an interest in construction and real estate in the kind of 2012 to 2014 range, you see this uptick. A lot of clients were asking about tech, and I was on the business development side, running teams for the consulting firm, and I was extremely attracted to the tech transition. I wanted to be a part of it. I had to find a way in, and my asset, I guess, at the time was selling. But it was a lot. A consulting sale is a slow relationship-based sale, as opposed to SaaS, which is you're either in SMB transactional or you're doing kind of an enterprise sale, and the goal is to keep your deal cycle lengths down. So it was a transition, but I think the fact that I was really entrenched in the New York City construction market, I think that was attractive to Dustin. I think that I had a bit of an executive presence. He wouldn't have a problem putting me in front of a construction of CEO or a head of VP of estimating. Those types of things I think played into his decision making, and then ultimately he needed someone to run a New York City office that he wanted to grow. So I think he had the foresight to know that if I could figure out SaaS selling, that I could be a good executive to help run the business from the East Coast, and it worked out well.
Was there a lot of selling? Maybe I'll rewind a little bit. From what I know and understand, that Building Connected was primarily, like, I think I should know this by now, but inside sales, whereby you're actually not like physically out there. Whereas my understanding, Mike, from when we chatted before, was that you were more boots on the ground when it came to from San Francisco, where Building Connected was based, to New York City. Is that right?
Yeah, we had 3 offices that we operated out of for sales. There was San Francisco, New York, and Cincinnati. So we had three offices. It was primarily inside sales, a lot of inside sales. But when we had a deal that was progressing, we would fly and meet with the customer. So it was kind of a hybrid approach, which is pretty common in SaaS sales. So yeah, there was a lot of the kind of dirty work was done inside selling, and then we would close on site, especially for the 6-figure deals.
So 3 offices, Cincinnati, New York, and San Francisco. I'm curious, where did the most volume of business come from geographically? Maybe let's start from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty well spread at the time. I mean, we had an extremely collaborative sales team. It was really a pleasure to be a part of. I learned a lot in the early days at Building Connected from my colleagues who had several years in SaaS sales under their belt at the time. This was back in 2015. So I learned a lot. It was extremely collaborative. When something worked, we would share knowledge. So as far as where the concentrations were, I mean, we focused on metro areas. So we looked at like the top 50 metro areas, and we would focus on concentrating customers in those metro areas, because if somebody was bidding in St. Louis or Phoenix or New York City, and then they were sourcing the similar subcontractors that as other GCs and owners were. So if we could concentrate a city, then we would have the ability to have a strong network of subcontractors in Building Connected that would allow for other GCs to want to be involved in it. So we would look at the top metros, and we would go hard at specific metro areas. So New York and San Francisco obviously were kind of the first 2 that we really wanted to concentrate. But there were cities across the Midwest and in the South, Florida, Texas, and the Midwest that started building pretty quickly. So it was fairly distributed, and we would look at general contractors obviously build in multiple markets, so they would pull us into new markets. So yeah, I think it was very distributed, Martin, to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mike, what did you bring from your experience at consulting to the sales world? Was there like a certain skill or strategy, tactic, whatever it might be, that you learned whilst doing the consulting side that was also a success within Building Connected? Or was there something on the flip side that just didn't work?
I think there's both. There's absolutely both. I think from on the positive side, when you're selling consulting, these are high fee engagements. They're typically long engagements, and frankly, a lot of the things that we would spend months doing, probably you could do a lot faster now with the way that with the GPTs that are out there, with the way that data is captured and collected. A lot of the work of the engagements at that time, back in kind of the mid 2000s and early 2010s, was you would have a lot of man hours to go and collect and analyze data. You can do that a lot faster now. So I think the consulting space is changing. But that being said, there was a lot of trust. A customer would trust you to help them in a major multi-million dollar, you're talking $50 million, $100 million lawsuits sometimes. So they would trust you to help them to lose as little money as possible or potentially recover as much money as possible. So that takes a lot of trust. So I think the whole trust factor, relationship building with regards to, hey, listen, this person, Mike, is going to help me to actually solve the problem that I have. I think that it was very translatable because it's not just a voice on a phone trying to get you to use a software. I was really taking a personal guarantee that, listen, this is going to change your business, and I stand by it and I believe in it, and I came here to this company because I know it's going to be impactful. And I think when you can have that sort of leverage and that credibility, that certainly helps a lot. So that was a positive thing. On the negative side, listen, just the number of transactions that you're doing, the number of deals that you're doing I probably did more deals in a month at Building Connected than I would do in like 2 or 3 years at the consulting firm, because the volume is just totally different. So, I think getting used to that sort of pace is, that was certainly eye-opening to me and exciting.
How did you guys manage to manage this sort of volume? Is it like a matter of technology, or did you have like special tricks to figure it out?
Few tricks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's just repeatability, right? You have to have a really good tracking program. I think that was something that was really helpful for me as well. We had a head of sales operations who was excellent, but I was very sales operations. I had a sales operations mindset in everything that I did. So analytically, I looked at things as, okay, if this conversion rate's low and this was high, then what do we need to do to optimize that? So I think, Martin, looking at the data and having an analytical mind, or if you don't, make sure that you have someone on your team that does, to look at it and actually make sense of the data, because sales is really about, it's two things. It's volume, so that's the level of effort and the time that you put in, and it's efficiency, is how efficient are you at converting. It's two things. That's all that sales is. And people work really hard. You can't train volume. Either someone has a hustle and they go out and do it, or they don't. You can't train volume. You can train efficiency. And if someone is inefficient, they can either get there or they can't, right? So if you have someone who's inefficient, you notice where the inefficiencies are, you coach them into being more efficient. They still can't do it. They're probably on their way out. So everything's down to those two things.
Awesome.
Any tricks to increase this efficiency, or any like a software that you use or you used to use? Like, can you tell us something?
Yeah, I guess I'll give a shameless plug here for the company Gong, or any sort of sales intelligence tool that records calls and captures all the emails and correspondence with an account. I think you have to have, whether it's Gong or Chorus or one of those solutions that does that, you have to have that if you really want to understand what's going on in the sales team, because otherwise you're just taking people's word for it. You can sit on as many calls as you want as a sales leader, but if you could have something doing that automatically and then just giving you the output, then it's significantly easier to performance manage. And it also helps the reps significantly to see, not only to just go back and remember what happened on a call, right? Because it's easy to forget when you're just trying to, be in the moment and sell. So to be able to go back and understand, what were my next steps on that call at, 3 calls ago when I had back-to-back meetings. So I think you have to have some sort of sales intelligence tool. I've used Gong for the better part of, 8-9 years. And it's evolved a lot, and it just keeps getting better. So those types of things are really important for helping with the efficiency piece.
I'm waiting for a sales leader in construction tech to say they use something other than Gong, to be honest. Everyone we
Listen,
spoke to is like Gong, Gong, Gong.
they're doing well for a reason. We'll see. I'll see what their IPO plan is.
Yeah, exciting. Okay, so after Building Connected, you was in Autodesk, obviously, as that was part of the acquisition, and you moved to London to build out the EMEA business.
Yes.
Yeah, so what was the kind of culture shift between selling? I think you were primarily selling to American people within within the time at Building Connected. But then over to EMEA, you're like British, Germans, French, like all these different and vastly different cultures, perhaps in some instances. So, what were some things that surprised you, and yeah, how did they go?
Yeah, that was a very rewarding time in my career to learn that and have the opportunity to do that, and it was very exciting. And yeah, at Building Connected, you're right. We were selling to the States and Canada. We can't leave our Canadian neighbors out. So I learned a lot about Canada as well. But yeah, when I moved over to London, first it's intimidating, right? You're a new executive at a large business where you're going to move over to EMEA, and immediately you're thinking, okay, why are these people going to think that I'm credible? Why do they think that I'm the right person for this role? Because immediately people's first reaction is, if they're already in the business and there's a new leader coming over to EMEA, although it was a small team at that time and we grew it quite substantially. But, the first thing is just to establish trust and credibility with the team, because they're going to help you learn about the markets. Like I could do all the research in the world, but if I don't have the trust of the team to talk about the things that go well or they struggle with, then I have no chance at being successful. So the first thing I needed to do was establish credibility. So we had hosted meetings, dinners, got to know everyone. I actually kept a list on my phone of like fun facts about everybody on the team, not only the sales team, but the marketing team, customer success team, the product team out there. Like, I had a notepad where I would say, okay, this person's kid is 5 years old. They like to ski. I wanted to know about every person individually because they were going to help me to do my job. And also it was just fun to meet new people in all these different countries. So yeah, I started with a team of, around 10 or so people. And we ended up growing the go-to-market team to about 100 by the time that I left, between sales and marketing and CS. So that was, and it was over 11 countries. So you're absolutely right.
Wow.
I mean, even just the culture shock of it was very rare that I would send an email to the team, like a company-wide or a team-wide email, that I didn't get at least one out of office reply. So that was eye-opening too, because I think the work-life balance in a lot of these countries is very different, and you have to adapt to that. You can't just force people to work, around the clock like a lot of American companies think. So that would have been unreasonable. So I had to adapt to that, like get excited about people going on holiday. But yeah, the different markets, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's night and day. So every country is a little different. There's some similarities here or there, but we relied heavily on the people in those markets, especially if it was a different language, right? You have to hire people based on what languages they speak. If people spoke multiple languages, they like moved up the interview process fast. And yeah, we also relied heavily on the partners. So Autodesk, as such a massive organization, has all these established partnerships with companies that are kind of resellers, or they're referral partners of the business. So in EMEA, we relied heavily on their expertise and their knowledge. And we did a lot of direct selling. But we also didn't want them to feel like we were overly competing. So we would have, okay, here's the portion of the market that you're going to go after. Here's the portion of the market that our direct team is going to go after. And when you establish that credibility, they want to teach and they want to learn because they want to sell faster. And then we want to learn about the market. So there's kind of this exchange of knowledge. So it was just constant collaboration, and a lot of Zoom calls, because a lot of that was during COVID.
Interesting. Are people? I often hear this as saying that the two hardest people to sell to are British people and German. I'm not sure in which order. Did you find this true?
Okay, so Brits are very much, okay, this is my opinion about specifically selling.
Yeah.
We found that they are, it takes a long time for them to make a decision, but once they make a decision, you're in, and you're in there for a while, and you really have to mess up to be back out. But getting in may take time, and a lot of times you'll feel like things went well. So you'll be in a meeting and the feedback will feel like it went really well.
Yeah.
But then you'll find out through a third party. You'll find out through someone else and be like, yeah, that's not going to work for them. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We're locked in.
You have described everything perfectly.
I think American buyers are more likely to be like, listen, your product sucks. I'm not buying this. A Brit is not going to do that.
Yeah. That's so funny. I can see it. I can see
If
it.
if you were to give advice to someone who is on a mission to expand to another market, what would you say?
You're talking about expanding like from selling exclusively to
Sales
the US to selling, yeah. I think,
into
well,
other markets.
a lot of it is product led, to be completely straightforward. If your product is not properly conditioned for another market, you're going to be rejected pretty fast. Doesn't matter how good you could sell.
Mm.
So, if you try to put a product that's focused for the American market or especially for construction, like focused for American standards, American, cost codes, I mean, whatever it may be, anything that's structured around a project that's exclusively, how the US builds, and you go and try to sell that in Germany, you're going to get laughed at. So it really has to adhere to the standards of that country, not to mention the GDPR requirements and those sorts of things. But the product has to be conditioned for how a German contractor builds. And if it's not, then you'll find out pretty quickly that it's not. So it has to be product led. You have to do the research to know what that is. For Autodesk, they've been selling internationally for decades, right? So, when the construction cloud businesses like Building Connected and PlanGrid and Assemble were acquired, and the platform was put together, and the go-to-market strategy for the Autodesk Construction Cloud was developed, that group learned a lot from Autodesk about how to build product for these countries. And some things worked and some things didn't. But if you're not prepared for that transition, it's going to go very poorly. So I think it's more important about the product transitions than the go-to-market part, which you can figure that out and put together a plan for that and hire the right people. But if the product doesn't transfer well, it's going to go poorly.
That's super interesting. That's exactly what Jeff Tarrant told us from PayApps. They were acquired by Autodesk too, and they were based in Australia and expanded to US and UK. And he said that I think the US expansion they got horribly wrong because the product was just not right for the local clientele, which was like interesting to hear. Even though he ended up being a huge success, it was something that it stays with him as they scaled through their journey.
Yeah, you think if it's an English speaking country, it'll translate well, but that's not always the case. UK, Australia, even Canada. Canada was probably the most straightforward international transition, but there were even things in Canada that our customers struggled with. I mean, one minor example is, we Building Connected at the time was a bid management solution, and in Canada and a lot of international countries, they call them tenders.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just
Same as
having the
UK.
word bid in the platform, the whole marketing play for the company was bid, and you're selling to someone who tenders. Immediately, you have to prove why you deserve to be there, and
Yeah,
that takes iteration and time.
100% agree. Yeah.
In the UK, of bidding only in casino.
Exactly. Well, no, gambling that would be. But bidding with like in the UK is like you bid for a car, you go to like a car bid, and people drive the cars in, and there's people there like 1,000, 1,500, whatever. Whereas tendering seems to be more related to, I would say, probably maybe more B2B. I don't know if that'd be specific to construction, but yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like procurement. Yeah, it's all around procurement. Yeah.
Yeah. How about OnSight IQ then? So we had a great episode maybe 2-3 months ago of Ardalan. Very fun founder to talk to. Has strong convictions about certain things, and it was great for our content reach. So
Oh yeah.
grateful for that. Yeah, how did the journey come around to OnSight IQ?
Absolutely. So Ardalan is an incredible founder and just person, and has become an extremely close friend of mine. And I'll go to battle for him any day, just like I would and have for Dustin. I think there's a lot of similarities between those two that stand out to me. But Ardalan is he when he's focused on something, he is relentless in getting there and getting it right. And that stood out to me very early on when I met him. So we met in probably around 2017. Very briefly, I had started a group in New York called the Society for Construction Solutions with Curtis Rogers, who's a great guy. He asked me to help him kind of expand this group into New York. So I did that, got together 20 or so people. We would host events every 2 months or so and have kind of like a tech meetup and have someone present and have pizza and beer and the whole thing. So Ardalan came to one of those, and this was kind of right when he was originally starting the company, 2017, and he came to an event, met him briefly. We didn't really go into too much detail at that time, but then about a year later, I saw him again at a conference in Texas, and he approached me and said, "Hey, listen." He was obviously aware of the group in New York and my work at Building Connected. So he said, "Hey, listen, I'm starting to put this product to market, and I would love to kind of get your opinion on some things from a go-to-market perspective." And we started talking about the business, and then everything clicked for me, because when he told me about the way in which he can capture data using 360, his vision of how he could train an engine to interpret and essentially draw insights from the images themselves, and essentially guide or provide that data to the customer to make better decisions faster, lower the time to information. I mean, the light bulb started going off, because when I was in consulting at Navigant, we're going back and forensically looking at these projects, and our teams were pouring through documents and figuring out where everything was. I mean, if you had one photo, it was like a gold mine. Like, that was everything. If you had a photo, because most of the time you're working off of daily reports where people are just writing the same shit over and over and not actually really talking about what's going on site. It's like,
Getting
oh,
the
it's
job done.
72 and sunny today, and like there were 15 guys doing drywall. It's like it's mind numbing. So obviously that's improved a lot with digital daily reports and people taking photos in their camera and tagging it like in Procore and PlanGrid and Autodesk Construction Cloud. So the just the data wasn't there. So at the time, back in 2013, I'm thinking, why aren't people taking more videos and photos of their sites? Like, why are we sitting here going through this manual process? And that was, at the time, I started thinking, okay, what's the barrier for this? You put a fixed camera, but then the building changes. You can't really use a fixed camera. Otherwise, you would need 1 million fixed cameras. So why doesn't someone just go around with a camcorder? It's like, okay, then where are you going to put that data? It was data storage in 2013 was not what it is now. You even uploading a 30-second video was like impossible at the time. So there was a data storage and data processing limitation that made it impossible. But obviously that accelerated substantially. So when I talked to him and he's explaining this to me, I'm like, holy shit, like this is obvious, right? It's just about how do we convince people that it's important to invest in. And that was something I was on board for. So we kept in touch. We ended up probably 6 months later getting into kind of more formal advisory agreement. I invested a little bit in the business. I got some advisory shares, and I was working with him, just kind of informally, and just to get things going and kind of learn what he was doing. And then, fast forward when I was looking to get back to the States in 2022, after my time at Autodesk, I wanted to get back to New York for personal reasons. My daughter was going to be going into first grade, and I just wanted to get back to the States after a great experience in Europe. But it was a good time to kind of make the transition. His business was in a place where a senior sales leader made sense, and I ended up joining full time in April of 22.
Nice.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
To OnSight IQ now?
Say that again?
I was asking Owen, do you want to dive into OnSight IQ now?
Yeah, we're on there. So
Before that, actually, I wanted to ask, you mentioned that you see similar characteristic between Ardalan and Dustin, and wanted to ask you, what are the characteristics of great founders based on those you work with?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think it comes down to it's several things, but if I had to summarize it into two things, the first one is just pure and utter relentlessness. I mean, the two of those guys, once they have an idea in their head, they may know that the path to get there is going to fail 1,000 times, but they do not care.
So you mean delusion?
Sometimes, honestly, sometimes. And as a practical executor, sometimes, they love having that sort of, counterbalance where it's like, okay, that it may work, but it will take this many resources and it's going to bankrupt the company. Right. Like
Mhm.
the practical, counterpart is they really draw from that, but their mentality is relentless, and they know something will work, and they are willing to put in the time and the failure until it does. And I really admire that. And even just fundraising. I mean, fundraising as an early stage technology company is, I mean, there's some stories where people, raise money pretty easily, but I mean, if you really dig into it, most of the time it's extremely difficult to do, and you have to really empower people to be on the journey and excite them about the future of the company. And that is repetitive, and you're doing it over and over, and you have to continue to believe and bolster and enhance your story, because that if it doesn't keep getting better, then people will lose interest. And I just admire their relentlessness, not only with fundraising but with strategy, execution. I mean, it really is. It takes a completely different mindset to have that sort of risk tolerance where you can push at something 1,000 times and know that it might still go wrong, and you've burned 4 years of your life, right? Like, that is really tough, and I admire that a lot. But the second thing, which I think is more about company building, is there's a lot of people that have great vision. Like, there's a lot of people out there that have a visionary mentality, and they can see 10 steps ahead of the normal person. And that is unique, but it's also, there's a lot more of them. But when you have that sort of person who is also has empathy and is empathetic to human beings,
Mhm.
that is a unique combination, because a lot of the times when someone's so far ahead, they almost cannot process how
Hmm.
a normal person operates, and how a normal person has a family and wants to go on vacation, and like, all they're thinking about all day is the thing that they want to conquer, and they lose sight of all that personal stuff. But when you have empathy and you can actually recognize that there's people in your company that are going to help you be successful, and without them you will fail, and they can
Mhm.
turn on the empathy and really, like, go out of their way. And just little things like cooking dinner for your team, taking your team out for drinks and talking about nothing, like zero work. Like, it's the little things that, go a long way, and have an offsite where there's not really an agenda, and it's really about building culture. I mean, these things are hard for founders to do because they're thinking only about the goal and the mission. So I think both of those guys have that.
Nice.
Right.
I just write a note to self to cook more dinners for my team.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. When this
Mhm.
continues to blow up, you're gonna have to make sure that you keep the
Thanks. Okay, Mike,
Can you cook, Owen?
can I cook? Actually,
Yeah.
yes. I do most of the cooking in my house.
Oh, that's
Maybe it's something you
impressive.
didn't know. Yeah.
That's not true.
Yes, that's true. That is. How would you know? First off, and secondly,
Martin is skeptical.
it's part of my morning routine. So one of the first things I
Okay.
do when I wake up in the morning is cook the dinner, because like, no one really wants to cook the dinner, but everyone wants to eat good food and be healthy. So you just get that shit out of the way first thing. It's done.
Hmm.
Done and
Wow. So
dusted.
you
Okay.
cook dinner, and then so you prepare it, and then you just have to do the last step when you actually want to eat it.
Like, yeah, it depends. Some things just prepare to put in the oven. Some things, like, you have to chop potatoes or something, like ready to be boiled and mashed. Or some things you can just cook, put in the fridge, and then reheat.
Wow, that's very impressive.
Yeah.
I admire that. Yeah, no, it's hard for me to fit in, cooking or doing anything like that in the morning. I have a pretty rigid routine in the mornings, and cooking hasn't fit into it quite yet.
Come back to me when it does. We can have a real
There's
chat then.
yet.
Yeah, yeah, man, it's goals.
Okay. So Mike, why target? Okay, let me rewind. For people that don't know, OnSight IQ's primary target customer, you could correct me if you're wrong, are not GCs, but you actually go upstream to the owners, developers, and so on. Why is that more difficult or maybe easier than targeting people at the general contractor level or
Yeah,
below?
fair. So that is
And why
correct.
are you going this way rather than towards contractors and subcontractors?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay, so first, yes, that is correct. So we work exclusively with owner, developers, and investors of real estate. So if you look at it as as three entities that are, the capital of a project. You have a developer, which is typically a GP role, general partner role, and then you have limited partners that provide, either active or passive equity. Some are hands-on LPs, some are kind of more passive LPs, but they'll put in the bulk of the equity in the project, and the operator will take a small portion of equity and benefit from the upside of the project and take on most of the risk. And then there's a lender who just provides a loan like you would get a mortgage on a house. And of those three entities, we sell primarily to the GP because they have the most risk at stake. The lender is the first pref in the capital stack, so their risk is fairly low to recover their capital. But the GP is the most at risk. So that's our target. And a lot of GPs, sometimes they're owners that self-perform. So especially in the multifamily space, there's a lot of owners that self-perform, meaning they act as the general contractor. So they are also the GC. And then you have owners that will hire third-party general contractors to do the work. So yes, that is correct. That's our target. The other question was, is it easier or harder? It's definitely harder. I think if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's definitely harder because owners are really not conditioned to buy technology or innovation. Or a lot of the times they are kind of offloading that to their consultants and third parties that they hire to do that. And to condition an owner as to why it's important for them to want to invest in innovation and own the data of that innovation definitely takes time and effort. I think it's been exciting to see it happen, but it's certainly not easier. And then as far as why we do it, I think you asked, Martin, we do it because owners have scale, right? A lot of the times, I think Ardalan mentioned this when you spoke to him. I mean, margins for general contractors are fairly thin. The larger general contractors have budgets for innovation, but middle market and smaller general contractors really don't. So it becomes challenging to scale within a company, right? If you land, you become capped pretty quickly at what that company can spend and what they can invest in you. Whereas an owner, if you can continue to provide value, theoretically, there's a higher bar as to what you can do as you build more products and you become embedded in their business. And that's kind of a long-term feeling for us, is the scale that they're looking at. If they're working on multiple projects in multiple regions, your opportunity to get embedded in all those projects is a lot higher if you're working with an owner than if you're working with a GC that has to get the sign off of every owner on every project potentially. So those are some of the reasons. And we've been very fortunate to land kind of enterprise agreements with owners that just deploy us across their whole portfolio, and they underwrite us in every deal. And that's our goal. Like, if we could get to the point where an owner just underwrites us into the cost of the deal, and they know that OnSight IQ will be on the project, we're out there deploying our platform for them. And then that's steady backlog and pipeline for us for a lot of times their pipelines are 2-3 years long, right? So that locks us in for that period. And as long as we're doing what we say we're going to do, they're going to keep using it.
I wanted to ask, why would the owners like to own and know their construction data? And how do you convince them? Like, what are the arguments for that?
Yeah. So I think there's two reasons. One is risk related, and one is operationally related. The risk related one, I mean, there's no hiding from the fact that construction is a litigious industry, especially in the States. I had a job for 10 years because of that, right?
Yeah. Same here, really.
Yeah, it's true everywhere, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's you hope you set up a project collaboratively, and you want that project to be collaborative, and most of the time it will go collaboratively. Even if there are some problems and the project is delayed, you still trust the third parties that you brought on. If you're an owner, your contractor, your architect, you still trust that they're going to execute to the highest of their ability. And if there's problems, they were unforeseen, and we're going to work through them together. That's the way the projects are set up. As time goes on, sometimes that breaks down, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does break down, if you have control of the data to be able to access and put together a story, then that helps in getting. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, everyone has access if there is a litigation because it's discoverable. But generally speaking, if you have the ability leverage the data and use it to help support your position in a dispute, then that's an advantage. But that's a in case that happens scenario. But on the operational side, which is really another big value is these owners, they're either holding the asset for a long period of time, or they're merchant building and they're going to sell it to an asset manager or a portfolio manager. So if in either case, they're going to at least hold it for 3 years because they got to stabilize the asset. If it's a rental, if it's a multifamily or even commercial space, you're gonna try to rent out and generate revenue and stabilize it with tenants for a period before you sell it, or you're going to hold it for 10, 20 years. And obviously then you care about the quality of the asset. So having a digital record of every week of construction, we're out there every single week on these projects, capturing 100% of the square footage of the project with a 360 camera. There's not a single corner of the building that you cannot see, and you can time travel every single week and see exactly what was in that particular area at that location, and it orients you. So if you're managing a building and you have facilities maintenance issues and there's a leak and you need to see where that pipe is behind the wall, or there's a problem with one of the risers and you got to see the penetrations, you could go back and see the slab pours. I mean, there's a million different use cases on the facilities management side. So I think a lot of owners, Martin, are thinking about, if I'm going to own this asset, I want to make sure that I can take care of this asset better. And deconstructive analysis of something that goes wrong is costly. So, having a platform to pinpoint exactly what they need to solve is also very beneficial. So that's sort of the long-term benefit of owning the data.
Okay. How do you typically target the developers versus generally what's the channels and strategies? What do these people like to do? Golf?
They certainly do like to golf. They like to. It depends on who in the organization, right? But generally speaking, they're chasing deals a lot of the time. So a lot of a developer's business is finding good opportunities, finding land, doing detailed analysis on whether or not a project is feasible, right? So they're constantly trying to find opportunities in the market in order to be able to build. And obviously, right now with the rates being high relative to recent years, the opportunity to find a development opportunity that pencils well, that they can actually build, is much harder than it was, call 3 years ago. So from that perspective, they spend a lot of time, out on the road finding deals and networking with people. So we try to meet them where they are. So obviously we have a cold outreach strategy. There's a lot of cold calls. There's email campaigns that are really targeted to specific people and tailored and customized to data on them that we find on the market. And that's kind of the engine that keeps people aware of our brand. But really our best chance of landing a conversation with someone or having a meaningful interaction is to go to an event or a conference that they are and meet them where they are. And we try to go to conferences where GPs, LPs, and lenders are getting together to try to do deals. And if we're just a fly on the wall at that event, and we have a chance to run into somebody that we want to get in touch with, or we set a few meetings in advance of that event, that helps us to have that initial connection. And then you can do your follow-ups virtually until you can get a meeting, and then you go on site and meet with them. And by on site, I mean at their corporate office. And we do a lot of initial meetings on Zoom as well. But yeah, a lot, like, being where they are, I think is the biggest strategy, and also leveraging the success of our existing customers, because the peer-to-peer referrals and references, and even just knowledge of the value that a peer of theirs has gotten, immediately their guard is going to be down and they'll be open to at least having a conversation. So we've been fortunate to have really strong customers that are willing to tell their story. We have a great marketing page on our website we call the voice of customer.
That's
that
great,
helps
by the way.
kind of put, break down the walls that people have when they're like, why do I need to waste time on this? So yeah, we try to meet them where they are. But other than that, it's brute force, cold calls, and trying to get someone on a good day.
Love it.
Have you thought about what's the like a penetration of the reality capture within construction companies versus owners? Like how deeply penetrated the market of the construction companies is in terms of reality capture solutions being applied versus owners. My intuition would tell me that there's much more companies, construction companies, would be using reality capture right now versus owners. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's definitely. I think the reality capture market for construction specifically. So reality capture has been around for a while. So obviously for I think it's a lot more prevalent in property management when you're kind of leasing a space to put a digital experience together on why you want to live here or work here or have set up a retail store here. Reality capture in that space has been around for a while and
Like Matterport, I think, is
Matterport,
solution,
exactly.
right?
Having a
Yeah.
Matterport, virtual walkthrough of a space that you're looking to lease. But construction, because it's dynamic and there's a lot of moving parts, reality capture has been a lot slower to progress. But I think it's come a long way. But there's still so much upside in where reality capture is now for construction. We've barely scratched the surface, even with a lot of we call them the do-it-yourself DIY solutions on the market, where they sell you a camera and you upload the data yourself. So a lot of that is targeted at contractors because they may have a use case where there's a particular area they want to scan, or they want to, they want to understand or they want to share an experience with an owner. A lot of the times it's helpful for marketing, as hey, we're a tech forward organization as a contractor. Here's what we use in the field to help our team be more efficient. So it really helps them sell more business as well if they can prove that they're tech forward and an owner feels that to be valuable. But in application, a lot of the times it's isolated specific use cases where they use that technology, right? Like, and if it's a BIM enabled project, that maybe they're using a scan of a particular area to compare to the BIM model and seeing what's installed and what's not. But to do that programmatically in the whole building every single week is not something that a contractor wants to spend resources doing, right? Because they're building. Their job is execution. So I think that's probably the biggest differentiator, and that's restricting the reality capture from being comprehensive across the whole project versus isolated for specific use cases. And I think that element of it, I think there's a world in the future where every single asset is captured throughout its entire construction duration. And you basically have a digital twin of the construction of that asset that stays with that asset for its lifetime. I don't know how far off that is, but that will happen. And
Yeah.
it's just a path to how quickly that happens.
Would you also give us some thoughts on like what's the best way to do reality capture? Some companies would say buy the technology from us and we'll send a person every week, every month, every 2 weeks, whenever you want to the site. They will capture the reality. they will capture the images, photos, and send it somewhere. Or some companies would sell software, buy yourself a camera, and run with it. Like, what's the best way in your view?
So, in my view, I think in any job or any task, the best chance of that task happening is if the person doing that task is exclusively focused on that task and that task alone. Think about anything, right? If they have multiple things to do, it becomes a prioritization exercise of what's more important today.
And what can you be asked to do?
Same thing exists with reality capture, right? If you think that you're going to get a superintendent or an assistant project manager or even an intern to capture data on a project, and it takes 2 hours to capture 100,000 square feet, and you're in a 400,000 square foot building or site, multifamily site, whatever it is, that's 8 hours to capture the entire site. And if you're going to do that every week, then that person has to spend hours doing that. If there's a leak on the 7th floor and that superintendent gets a call, that capture dies. If the battery dies on the camera, they're going to throw it in a drawer. If somebody on site laughs that they're walking around with a camera on their helmet, then they're probably less likely to use that more routinely. There's a million reasons we get from customers as to why the beginning of the project is great. 3 months in, I've stopped getting data. There's a million reasons why that is. When you have an operational motion to exclusively capture data and data alone, and that's 100% of your job, and there's a timer that pays you based on the captures. You are paid to capture, and then your capture is done, and then your job is done. There's no other thing that you have to do. Then there's no doubt that will be more comprehensive and more consistent. So that's really what I feel is the best way to get what you want, is if there's someone dedicated, 100% of their responsibility is to capture data. And if you can do it cheap and efficiently and operationally do a really good job of quality control and scheduling the people doing it, that's where you're going to get the most comprehensive data. And then one last thing to add to that is, when you're trying to use AI to interpret construction imagery in that reality capture, if you don't have consistent data that can look at the same area over and over and over again and see the differences, then the engine is not trained. It's inefficient. So I think it's really important to have the data, but also if you have the comprehensive data, what it can do to train your engine becomes much more material than if you have kind of spotty data that you're piecing together.
Maybe this is actually an interesting point. Like, if you can elaborate a bit, like what can we do currently with this data, and where do you see the industry going? Like, what will be available very soon to do with this data?
Yeah, I mean, there's being able to look at an area and see where are the objects? Is something installed or is it not? So we originally trained the engine to recognize objects and to understand where, is there electrical wiring in this unit? Is there not? Is there insulation in this unit? Is there not? Is there duct above this unit? Is there not? Is there a electrical panel in this unit? Is there not? So on and so forth. So once it knows what to look for, then if it knows what should be there, it can tell you whether or not it's there. And then you can generate a percentage completion of your 100% of drywall would represent this much drywall, but right now you're at 65% for this unit, and then over the whole floor it's 32%, and over the whole building it's 17%, right? So having object recognition that then can translate into percentages is step one. And what we're in the middle of now is the AI can actually, it's been trained to actually recognize where those objects are and highlight them in the application for the user, so that if they want to know when was this wall closed, they can click on the wall and it will go and bring them back to the capture that wall was installed. So that's really exciting, and it's constantly learning to do more and more. And we've leveraged the AI engine and human verification to continue to validate and iterate. So, if 4 years ago, a lot of this was AI led and human executed, now a lot of the things we do are AI exclusively and human QC'd. And it's just like Tesla, right? I think Arlen gave this example to you. Originally FSD, the driving, autonomous driving would do really great on a highway, but if you put it in a city, it would be a mess, right? But it does pretty well in the city now. It just took training and iteration. That same evolution happens. So if you have a consistent data set, it's inevitable.
Cool. Okay, Mike, what's your advice, if you have any, maybe everyone is waiting for the answer to this question, to speed up notoriously long sales cycles? And this is obviously specific to construction, but I could only imagine it gets worse as you go upstream.
To speed it up. So I think the only way to speed it up is to build traction in the market where there's a buzz. People are talking about your business. The best thing for an early stage company is when you hear from somebody that you were discussed in an industry meeting or some sort of committee. because then you know that you're in, right? You know that there's a buzz building. So that's really the only way to reduce sale. I mean, you might be able to speed up a sales cycle with certain techniques for one buyer, but in mass,
Mm.
the only way sales cycles go down is if you continue to build market traction and you prove that your product does what you said that it was going to do when you sold it to the last customer. So I think that's where the momentum and the exponential growth really happens, when those peer-to-peer connections start to generate buzz, and then people take you a lot more seriously.
Yeah.
So that's really a company-wide initiative, product and go to market.
Yeah, that's a good one, getting traction. I thought maybe you might say just call them 3 or 4 times a day and be like, "Yeah,
That too. Well,
sign,
that has to
sign,
happen
sign."
also. Yeah, that has to happen also. As long as you do it tactfully, then you're in good shape.
Interesting. How do you manage the multiple stakeholders involved in the process? Because I'm guessing when you're targeting developers as well, you have different personas within the sales cycle, influencers, economic buyer, decision makers, so on and so forth. How do you manage the complexity between those people and perhaps even their differing interests?
I mean, that is critical if you have an enterprise sort of approach and a top down sale where you establish value at an executive level, prove it at kind of at a team level, and then bring it back to the executive level and show them what you've done so that they can make a buying decision. Um, the first thing you have to do is map it out. Like, you have to have a diligent process to actually do an org chart or a political map and know, who's going to help you to advance this forward. Who's potential detractors, who's your economic buyer. Mapping that out is the first part, and you may not know it all out of the gate, or you may not be able to figure it out all just based on the company's website. But over time, as you get more information from more conversations, you have to have a system that maps all that out if you really have a true kind of portfolio mentality type sale. So we do that. We have a relationship mapping software that helps us to do that, and then it's just about how do I achieve a connection with a person in the process who's important and has been represented to us as important, but has not engaged with us yet. And that's where the work comes in.
Before we started recording, I think you said that yesterday or this week, you guys managed to close middle of 6 figures deal. What's the key to such a big wins?
Yeah, absolutely. That was 600K deal on the last day of the quarter. That's always a nice way to finish Q2 and put you in a good mood the next day. Yeah, those things don't happen overnight, for sure. I mean, if we get to a point where we can sling a 600K deal in a month, then good for us. But these things take time, right? That particular customer, we've worked on probably, I think, 3 projects with them, proven value, and ultimately convince them that, hey, this is something you want to embed in your business moving forward. You've made clear that here's the value that you got out of the platform. Here's the things that we helped you to do that you otherwise couldn't do without us. And why would you not want this on every project? And if the answer is you do, then let's do a deal to get that done that benefits you, right? You save a little bit of money by investing and committing to a certain your portfolio for the next 2-3 years, and in exchange for that, we get the commitment from you, and you save a little bit of money. So that's usually how something like that goes, and it has to be a partnership, and that takes time to happen, right? So it's certainly the better part of a year, where a lot of these enterprise deals take 6 months to a year on the larger side. But we've done some that are in the 3 to 500K range that we've gotten done in 4 or 5 months using a proof of concept approach. So it really depends on the buyer and how much pain they have that needs solving.
Mm-hmm. And how do they usually prefer to be charged? Is it per construction volume, or like a more fixed type of rate? What do they want?
Yeah,
Consumption based.
we've
Do,
gone
do,
back and
do.
forth on this actually quite a bit, and we're still evolving, from a pricing and packaging perspective. And as you release new products, you always want to reconsider that. But generally speaking, our buyers look at things in the sense of projects, right? Because there are different investors in different projects. So when we get a commitment like that, we're still pricing the solution for each project, and they're committing to a number of projects. And then when we invoice them, they can allocate those costs to at the project level. And there may be a platform fee involved that locks in the agreement, but generally speaking, the bulk of the fees are kind of pushed to the project, and that's how our buyer buys, right? So that's really what we've done, and it works really well, to get the commitment, to have kind of a percentage of it that they have as sort of a platform fee or a commitment, and then the balance is invoiced to the projects themselves.
Hmm.
Okay.
Mike, I have a question around. So, I know that you mentor a few other CEOs, people involved with sales, and so on and so forth within the industry. What topics, like what advice do you typically give them? And is it all around? Is it like a recurring thing that comes up that you think people should focus on a little bit more, in particular when it comes to sales, or like, is there anything out of that that you could share with us?
Sure, you're talking about mentoring like sales reps, account executives that are trying to advance in their career, or like sales leaders that are managing teams.
I guess both. Like the question's very open, so take it which way you like.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to have some incredible people that I've worked with and that I've managed, and it's really fun to see them advance in their careers, right? Like I'll be on LinkedIn and see that so and so got a promotion, or so and so joined a new company and now they're in a sales manager role, or they're leading a BDR team, or they're in like an enterprise account executive role, or VP of sales role, right? So that's very exciting and rewarding when you feel like this person, that you influenced part of that journey for that person, and they acknowledge that to you, and tell you like, hey, I really appreciate you know this tip that you gave me really helped me in this situation. Like, I really appreciate that. And that's there's nothing more rewarding than that, or getting a message that says like, I can't wait to have the opportunity to work with you again, right? Like, there's nothing better than that. And I think the
Mm.
best advice that I try to give is other than, there's tactical things, right? I love when I get a call or a text that says, hey, like, I'm dealing with this issue, can you help me? And I'll make time to do that because I love problem solving. So the tactical stuff is super fun to me, like digesting. Okay, and I ask a lot of questions, like, tell me about what the problem is, who said this, what did their manager say? Well, and I love putting together the story, and then I'll give an opinion, right? And say, but this is why you might want to look at it. That's super fun to me. I've done that. I've done that. I've been on a ski trip and got a call from someone and took the call on my headphones while skiing, and like went up and down the lifts a couple of times talking through this thing, and helping her
Hmm.
to get
That's
through it. Like,
cool.
I actually really do love that. But general things, I mean, sales is really a people based business. So I really try to stress getting to know your colleagues, getting to know your customers to the best of your ability, even if it's small. And if you can take a note, because you're not going to remember everything, but if you take a note on someone, or put their birthday in your calendar, or remember when their kid starts their sports team that they're excited about, or just little things
Mm.
that people, if you bring it up, you're like, oh, how's Jeff's softball going? They're like, oh, this guy remembered that I had a
Nice.
kid named Jeff, and then they're starting softball, right? I think those little things go a long way to build trust, because without trust, you can't really get much farther. So I try to coach on that. And then obviously, there's sales tactics, and I could go on and on about that stuff. But I really think the trust building and the relationship building internally and externally is paramount to having, for people wanting to work with you, wanting to help you, wanting to be involved in whatever you're doing. and then that pays dividends in the future.
Mm-hmm. There's a last closing one from me. I'm very curious what is on the picture behind you.
These here?
Yeah.
These are this is the original patents for Lego when they converted to kind of plastic bricks, because they were wood
Wow.
bricks, and so this one is the like the original plastic brick from 1961, and Godfrey Christensen, who was like third generation Lego family, started developed the plastic brick, and then this one is the first kind of Lego guy, like the little Lego guy that this is my Lego family here.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
So my daughter in the middle with the crazy pink hair.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they moved it to plastic, and obviously, the Lego story is incredible because they had some great innovations like this. The business was around forever, super successful, and then I forget exactly when it was, but I want to say sometime in the 90s, like it started losing traction, and they brought someone in to completely revamp the brand. I mean, it's an incredible story.
Yeah.
And not to mention, I just loved playing with Legos as a kid, so I love the Lego story.
I have been really toying myself with buying like a Lego. You can get the ones that are a bit more ornamental, where you could put on like a shelf in the living room or whatever. I have been
Absolutely.
really seriously thinking about it for a while, but I just
They have
haven't pulled the trigger.
they have flower bouquets. You could, my daughter has built these flower bouquets. We have them displayed in the kitchen. They're great.
Yeah, there's one, I can't remember the piece of art. I think it's, I was going to say Mozart. Oh no, I'm going to kill myself now. There's a very famous painting. I'll try and describe it to you. You guys can try and help it. It's basically of the night sky.
Starry
Like,
Night.
yeah. And there's a Lego version of that.
Van Gogh. Yeah.
Van Gogh, there you go. And but because it's Lego, it's obviously 3D, and so like the artist Van Gogh, as part of the Lego piece, is like outside of the picture, like he like sort of like flows into it. It looks absolutely amazing.
That's cool.
On my
That's
list.
very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on board for anything Lego related. I'm definitely on board.
Sweet. All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much. Do you guys have any kind of initiative going at the moment? Are you hiring? Are you looking for something in particular that maybe the people listening to this might be able to help you with?
Not hiring right now. We are we're working on a very exciting product that is, we look at it as generating the productivity of an assistant project manager for a quarter of the cost, that works 24/7 and has a photographic memory. So
Nice.
integrating a lot of the the functionality of a GPT into a system that also can see everything in the building every single week, and be able to flag things or easily understand or search for, hey, where have all the dishwashers been installed in this multifamily site, and being able to quickly surface that data to our customers, and also draw in a lot of the email correspondence or OAC meetings that are recorded in to tell a story about what's happening. So we're really excited about that, and we're kind of beta testing with some early customers that are willing to participate, and I'm thrilled to see where that will go, because that I think will change everything, and we're looking forward to that coming to market.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
And you.